teaches you how to get more and better results both personally and professionally. I'm your host, Jean Oursler, the Result Queen. Today, we have Rachel Durkin, the founder of Paradigm Marketing and Design. Hi, Rachel.
Hello, Jean, and everybody else.
I'm so excited to have you on the show.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Rachel is an author in the Breakthrough Results book, and she wrote an amazing chapter, which I want to talk to her about, as well as what her company is all about and what she can do for you. So with that, Rachel, can you just tell us a little bit about you?
Sure. My company is Paradigm Marketing and Design. We are a women-owned business. We're a very small agency. We have a team of 5 of us, and we offer exactly what it says, marketing and design services. So we're a full-service marketing agency. We help clients identify their strategic marketing strategy or strategic plan, figure out how to communicate their message to their target audience and understand their target audience DNA, and then helping them figure out how to communicate that message to the target audience. So what are the communication outlets in which they're going to utilize in order to reach their audience? Then on the other side, we're a full-service web and graphic design company. So if you're looking for website development services, graphic design services, we are an award-winning agency. So we've been recognized by a number of accredited organizations for the work we've done. But what makes us different there is that everything we do has a purpose. And I talked about this in the chapter of my book, but it takes 7 to 9 touches to reach your target audience. And touch doesn't have to be buy my product, buy my product, buy my product. The touch can be like us on Facebook so that you can get information about our promotions, to sign up for our newsletter that drives traffic to the website. So it's all about creating a system of communications that's going to keep your audience engaged. And those communications need to reinforce your message every time. So what differentiates us on the design side is that every piece we create, every website we build has a purpose, and it supports your marketing efforts in order to fit appropriately into your overall strategic plan.
That sounds really amazing.
Thank you.
I'm very happy.
Yeah. And we serve clients anywhere from, I say 3 areas. So startup, mid-level, and larger. And in our world, and that always changes depending on who you're talking to. A startup can be somebody who's just having their business for the first time. We have very small clients that we're helping to get their first website or their first marketing material or their first business card. We do mid-level organizations, and that can be $1 million to $5 million. We help them support their marketing efforts, and we serve as an outsourced marketing department. And then we serve larger organizations. Our biggest client is about $60 million in revenue a year, and we help them to execute their strategic plans.
That's very cool. I know that in the book you talk about perception, and that perception is really important. And I don't think that a lot of us think about perception all the time. So tell me what you think about as perception generally and for marketing, and what we should be aware of.
So the biggest mistake all size organizations make, especially small business owners, but I see this over and over again in every company I walk into that needs my help, is that everyone assumes they know what their customer wants. And you can never assume that you understand what your customer wants, because regardless of your industry, the customer is ignorant to what you do and what you offer. So it's really important that you, instead of saying, this is what I do and I can help you, and assuming that that's what they think they need help with, is that you identify their pain point and what it is they think they need, and you present your message in a way that it's solving their problem in their mind. So one great example, and I'm just talking to a client about this, is we might offer marketing services, but not everybody knows, oh, I need a strategic marketing plan. They don't think that. They might come to me and say, I need marketing, I need social media, I need a website, and they don't understand the full grasp of really what it is they need to grow their business appropriately. So it's really important to have a conversation with your audience and make sure that you're positioning your message and your service and your solution in a way that they can understand it.
And what do you mean by conversation? What kind of conversation should I be having with my audience?
Yes.
How do I do that?
Good question. It depends on what kind of agency you are. I mean, if you're serving, if you're a consumer-based industry and you are serving globally, a global market, it's a little bit of a different approach than if you're a local, either service-based or consumer-based industry in the area. What I like to do always is customer interviews. So our process, our research process kind of goes a little bit like this. We sit down or we identify all of the competitors in the marketplace, and we take a look at how they're positioning themselves. Are they successful with that? Are they unsuccessful with that? And where is there an opportunity for us to fit in that differentiates ourselves from those competitors? But more importantly, we do what we call customer interviews, and it's subjective interviews where we're talking to the customer, whether it's the customer, a prospect, it can be a vendor, it can be a partner, but how is it that you're being perceived? So in those interviews, we cover a couple of things. One of it is the consumer. We're trying to understand the consumer buying process. So when did they identify a need for your product or service? How did they define that need in their mind? Did they realize that they had a problem and they didn't know what to look for? Or did they say, oh, this is exactly what I need? And how did they phrase that? What language did they use? Also, how did they come to seek your product or service? Did they do research? Did they look at other competitors? Did they look online? What was and when were they ready to buy, as opposed to when did they start the research process? So it's really important to ask your customers those questions, because oftentimes, more often than not, how they perceive you is not how you think they perceive you. And that becomes, and I'm sure you're going to ask me about this later, Jean, but that becomes especially important when you're going to roll out a new product or software platform or even a new business. You want to do that research up front, because if you're creating a service or product that the customer that's not ideal for the customer in their mind, then you're wasting a lot of time.
Well, I know that I should ask up front, just as you just said, but what happens if I already have a business and I didn't ask?
Mm-hmm. That's okay. Usually it's salvageable, especially if you're a service industry. A lot of times my clients actually come to me when they're maybe 5 years in business, 10 years in business, and they've got their operations down. They know what they're doing. They're a well-oiled machine, and maybe they've hit a plateau. Oftentimes what I find with that is they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. They figured out what the customer needed, and they're delivering a solution that the customer needs. So that's why they're so successful. But they could grow more if they reposition themselves to make sure that the customer understood what it is that they offer, and they could bring in more clients that way.
So I shouldn't be scared to think that I messed it up in the beginning. I can always retrieve it in the end?
No, yes, you can. And especially if the business is going well or growing, regardless of how slow, it means you're doing something right. So it's just a matter of leveraging what you're doing right and not doing what you're doing wrong. And also in those customer interviews, we often find out, I always ask, and they're usually anonymous because I get more honest answers, but I often ask, like, what can so-and-so be improving on? What can they be doing differently? And we get some really good information from that.
So if I'm a small business on a shoestring budget, can I develop my own questions?
Sure.
Should I ask them myself, or should I ask somebody else?
It's always best if you have a trusted strategic partner or somebody who understands your marketplace to have them ask the questions, because as many times as you're going to ask, and you should always ask, just because people aren't always as honest to your face, right? So it's better to have somebody else ask and say, oh, this is going to be anonymous. I'm doing like 10 or 12 interviews and I'm not going to show your name. You're going to get more honest information from that. That doesn't mean you shouldn't ask every time you have a client or a conversation with somebody, because you want to stay informed. But yes, if you're going to do an overall marketing research strategy, I would recommend that you bring in a partner to help ask those questions.
And then what do I do with that information once I've asked all those questions?
Sure. So what we usually do is we'll get pages and pages of data. And again, don't forget to look at your competitive analysis, because what you might hear is, at the end of the day, you want to come up with a messaging strategy. And that messaging strategy comes from hundreds of pages of data to one sheet of paper. I put it on. And it says who you are, what makes you different and unique, and what are your value propositions to your target audience. I usually have 3 to 5 value propositions. And a value proposition is just that. What makes you valuable? Why do they want to work with you? What pain do you solve? So that you want to take all of that data and make sure you're using phrases that your customer use. Do not use lingo that's in your own head, and do not use your perceptions. You have to. That's also why it's good to have somebody else do it. Make sure you're using phrases from your customers' mouths and in your messaging document, because you want to repeat that that message over and over again. And so that document then becomes the Bible. It goes, I call it your messaging Bible. It goes on your website. It goes to your sales team. And if you're your only sales team, that's okay, but make sure you're saying the same thing every time you go out there. So that message should be reinforced. And if you're not saying something that's reinforcing that message in some way, don't say it.
All right. So I think I might be a little overwhelmed at this point. Where the heck? I'm a small business owner and I'm a woman. And where the heck do I get started?
Sure. So what I would do is first start with the questions. So really think about, what is it that you need to know from your consumer? And that would be their buying behaviors, So when do they identify a need for your service? What is their pain point initially? Would be first. The second would be around messaging. How do they perceive your service? How do they perceive working with you? So, what do they find valuable? Why do they choose to work with you? Why do they choose you over the competition? Why do they continue to work with you? That will also often give you a lot of insight as to your value proposition. And you might not even have known, that somebody's valuing something that you do. So that's where I would start. So it's a simple conversation. I would create a questionnaire. And again, that's to cover the, how they got to you and why they find you valuable. So that's where I would begin.
And then the next step is to ask. And I know you talk about asking in your chapter and how the importance of asking. It sounds like most of us don't ask. Is that truth?
It is. A lot of people assume that they know. I have so many clients where I say, okay, we need to do customer interviews. And they're like, oh, no, you can just interview us. We'll tell you what our customer likes and wants. And I say, that's not going to work. and you might get close, but more often than not, you're going to miss something that's really valuable, or I've seen people be completely wrong, and because their perception is very different.
So, some of us may not have the courage to ask.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a right way, a wrong way, or just a get started way?
So often somebody comes to me and they're like, well, how am I going to get you 20 clients to talk to you? They're not going to want to talk to you. And believe it or not, they do want to talk to me. People love to share their opinion. And sometimes we'll offer like a reward or, a gift card or something to speak with us. But most of the time we don't. And the introduction is just very simple. So Jean, if you were my client, you would say, and I said, I needed to talk to some of your clients. You would email them and say, I'm doing a market research study to help us grow our business and improve your customer experience. Would you please speak with Rachel or that partner that you've decided is going to help you to answer a couple questions about what it's like to work with us. And interviews like that I do a lot of them on the phone, and they usually only take about a half an hour.
Oh, so they're easy.
They're very easy, and it becomes a conversation. So you don't want to hand a questionnaire to somebody and be like, fill it out. You want to make sure you're using your questionnaire as a guideline, but you're leveraging it to dig deeper when something comes up, because I can't always guarantee the direction the conversation is going to go in.
So then once I've done my asking, what would be the next step for me to do? Good.
So you've done your asking. While you're doing that, or as the next step, you should be doing a little bit of market research about your competitors. So I always encourage them to it's on a high level. Now, the one thing you have to remember in the sales process, if there's a sales funnel, right, marketing is at the tippy top of that, right? So if you've got a lot to say to your customer, or to explain a difficult service that, if it's a complicated service, take a step back and realize that in your marketing strategy, on your what's being said on your website is only this much of the full marketing funnel. So you only want to share this much. It's to answer their pain point. Hey, I think I can help you. And it gets you to the next conversation. That's the job in marketing, right? So when we do a competitive analysis, we're looking at just that, the high level conversation. So what are they saying about themselves on their website? What are they saying about themselves on social media? How are they leveraging their social media? What do they say about themselves in their newsletter, etc.? So you're just looking on a high level of how they position themselves, what are they saying their value propositions are, what they're saying their services are, who their audience is, what little pain they solve. So once you get all that information, you can take a look and say, okay, well, 6 of my competitors are doing this, but based on my customer interviews, I found an opportunity over here. Maybe I should be capitalizing on that. So it gives you a good idea of how to differentiate yourself in the marketplace and what opportunities to look for.
So this sounds, Rachel, like this is for big companies. Mm-hmm. Is it really for small companies? Even if it's just me, like I'm just a consultant, or I have 2 or 3 people, is it for small companies too?
I think that that's exactly who it's for. It's for whether I'm working with a $60 million company or a startup, I do the same process. And here's why. It's actually more important to do when you're a small company, because you only have so much time to waste, right? So you got to work smarter and not harder, especially I don't, women and men too, but we've got a lot to juggle, and we've got to make the time that we're spending count, right? So if you understand, this is my target audience, this is my niche, this is who I'm going after, and this is how I'm approaching them, you're much more strategic in your planning and execution and sales strategy, as opposed to a blanket marketing strategy. You almost have to think about it as they always say marketing is taking spaghetti and throwing it against the wall and seeing what fits. that is a lot of waste of time and dollars, and the success rate is only so. But if you have a very strategic, focused approach on this is who I am and this is my brand and this is how I'm going after my target audience, it's going to help you to get bigger clients and grow more quickly and efficiently.
And you mentioned something about niche. I think so many of us, especially as women, we're nervous to say, I only service this small area. We think, oh, I should be working with everybody. Is that true or not?
I don't. Wait, I don't know. Say the question again. Is it true?
Most of us think that you just talked about you should work with a niche, which is a very small area of people. I think that a lot of us, especially women, think that we should work with everybody and tell people we work with everybody. And
yeah.
It's not like that's true. Is that true?
It's not true. You should not work with everybody. You need to, first of all, if you say you work with everybody, that throws off a lot of red flags because a lot of people want somebody specialized to their industry or what they do, right? So if you say, oh, I service Fortune 500 companies and I can also help out, the little guy over here. Well, if you're positioning yourself on your website to do both, the Fortune 500 companies are going to be skeptical because, well, why do they have so many little clients? And the little guys will be like, oh, they're too big for me. They don't want me. So you're actually doing yourself a disservice by marketing to the masses. You need to identify a specialty and an area of expertise and focus on that. And not only is that going to help you with your marketing strategy, but it's going to help you with your operations plan as you go along because you can't please everybody and you can't be good at everything. So it's really important to identify where your expertise lies and focus in that area.
Well, come on, Rachel. Don't you think as women, we think that we're good at everything?
We do. But then at the end of the day, when we're exhausted, we realize, well, maybe we're not.
Exactly. And I think that when you're a business owner, especially a women business owner, it's important to be able to juggle all these things and really understanding your marketing sounds like it can really help you build and grow your business. Is that true?
Yeah. I always say that I'm guilty of it. I'm guilty of doing. And I read a couple, there's a ton of business books out there, but one of the ones that gave me the most advice was working on your business and not in your business. And as a solopreneur or a small business owner, it's really hard to take a step back and like out of the weeds and think, okay, what can I be doing more smartly? How can I be positioning myself differently? And what I find is great with that is I have either a dedicated team member or a strategic partner who I back up and I have strategic conversations with. What do I want my goals to be? Where should I be focusing my efforts? And am I doing that or am I just spinning my wheels and spending a lot of time doing instead of thinking?
And it's interesting that you say that because in the chapter you talk about good guy, although we'll call it good gal, I guess, example. But talk about, what we do wrong and what we should be doing right. And I hate to say this wrong and right, but I know many of us as business owners kind of go down the wrong path where marketing is concerned. And we don't have enough time and we don't have enough dollars and we don't have enough this. And then the next thing you know, we're there.
Yeah.
How do we start and continue to grow and do really well in marketing and be a great gal?
Yeah. So I want to be cautious of the story. The good guy in the book was actually creating a software program. And if you're creating a software program or you're bringing a product to market and you're spending a lot of money on operations or startup before you can even go to market, then stop. Don't do anything until you do your market research. But if you're a service industry, I don't want to caution you against not doing. Sometimes you just kind of have to start getting something going before you can really fly. You got to take a running leap, and that's okay. But the moral of the good guy story in the book is that they created a software platform that they thought was a great idea, and they had in with a number of large enterprise level organizations, and they went to sell it, and all these organizations were like, well, this isn't exactly what we need. I guess we could use this feature of your program, but we really need 6 other features. And it's like, well, if we had just asked them in the first place, we would have known that when we went to market. So it's really important to not assume. That's really how you can avoid issues like that, is never assume you know what your customer wants.
That's great advice, Rachel. I'm going to ask you two last questions. The first one is, how do you get results?
Mm-hmm. Oh, man. Well, doing exactly what I said. And it's harder, the cobbler's kids has no shoes concept. It's certainly harder to do it for ourselves. Sometimes I do have to ask strategic partners to sit with me and give me a perspective from outside looking in. But I try really hard to create plans and make sure that we're following and monitoring those plans. So if I establish a marketing plan and we have a yearly calendar, and I say, here's our goals, here's who we want to reach, here's how it's going to incorporate into our sales strategy. And I try to create what I call KPIs, key performance indicators that we measure on a monthly basis. So it's really great to have a long-term 12-month, even 3-year, 5-year goal, but to outline it in smaller pieces that are measurable over time to make sure that you're doing the behaviors that are going to make you successful.
You know, Rachel, it's interesting. You said the shoemaker's kid has no shoes. I think as women business owners, we often think, okay, we could do it all ourselves. Mm-hmm. I don't know. It sounds to me like you have a marketing firm that you work with that helps your marketing firm. I know I have a coach that helps me in my coaching practice. Mm-hmm. And I don't think as women that's a shameful thing to do. The fact is we don't have our own shoes on. So let's have somebody else help us, right?
That's actually, I think, the biggest mistake business owners and especially women make is I'll have somebody says, I'm going to do my own website. Well, you're doing yourself a disservice. I'm not going to do my own plumbing. Okay. If my sink breaks, I'm not going to try to fix it myself. I'm going to pay someone. And the same thing applies. If you're spending time trying to do something that you're not good at, then you're wasting time, then you're missing time on spending that you could do something that you are good at. So it's better to hire the experts and bring someone in who knows what they're talking about, because you can't do it alone. And that's actually something I learned early on in my business. I was a solopreneur for a long time, and I realized, and I was doing web, I have coding background and marketing background and design. And I was doing the design and the website coding and the marketing, and technology was changing so quickly. I couldn't keep up with every area. And I realized very quickly that I can be a jack of all trades, but then I can be an expert of none. So I had to start, that's how I built my team. I picked experts. Like, I have one person who's very good at web development, and I have one person who's very good at design and social media marketing or whatever it might be, because you can't do it all yourself. And if you think you can, you're never going to be the best at something. So I always encourage you to bring in the experts and to help you.
Yes, but here's the thing I know that our audience is thinking right now. I don't have the money.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the other thing I think that stops us as women business owners is that we often say, I can't spend the money on that.
Mm-hmm. So there's a couple ways to look at that. I, as a small business owner, I have planned out all of the things that I would love if I had an unlimited budget. And what I do is every couple months, I try to roll out the next thing. So I can't do everything at once, but I know that, a new financial plan or a new website or a new coach or whatever it might be are all critical to my growth. And while I can't, my company and women usually are statistically less likely to borrow money. They're more risk adverse. And that's not a bad thing. I grew my company totally on without borrowing anything to a point. Then I had to, then you need a line of credit. But the best thing to do is realize that you do have to invest in some places and do it slowly. So strategically plan out, okay, I'm going to grow and this is going to help me bring in revenue. So I'm going to do this first. And this is going to help me get my operations underway so that I'm spending less money. So I'm going to do this second. So it's important that you plan it, but you in order what's that old saying? You got to spend money to make money. Yeah. So you really do have to invest when appropriate and strategically, but it's got to be done if you want to get where you need to go. So I do encourage you to think that through and, be prepared to do so.
And spend the money if you need to. I was sitting with a client the other day, and I said to her, "What happens when you don't have enough money?" She goes, "I always spend more because then I know I'm making more."
Yeah, exactly.
And I was like, I don't care. I figure out where I can get it, and I just spend more so I can make more.
Sometimes every business decision I ever made that was really scary and really stressful was about money. Am I going to have enough to pay this person? Am I going to have enough if I go out on my own? And you know what I realized is that if I invest smartly and I spend smartly, the money follows, because the operations or the people or whatever that's implemented with that money I spent is going to help me grow my business.
I couldn't agree more, Rachel. I think that's a wonderful insight for the audience. The last thing is I understand that you have a free gift for the audience. Want to tell a little more about that?
I have a what? I'm sorry.
A free gift.
A free gift. Oh, yes, a free gift. If you go to work.
You told me about that at the beginning, yeah?
My gift. I do. If you go to our website right now, we actually have a number of resources on our website for small business owners. We have a webinar, but also we have the chapter that I wrote in the book that you can go and download. If you give us your email address, you'll be added to our newsletter, which will share a ton of tips with you, but you can download the chapter and read it for free.
And how can I do that? What's your website?
It is www.paradigm, paradigm-md.com.
Say it one more time.
Paradigm, paradigm-md.com.
Excellent. I know, listen, I've read your chapter, Rachel, and I love hanging out with you because we could talk so much more, but the reality is that it's time to go.
Okay.
I know. Is there any last words of wisdom that you want to share with the audience before we say goodbye?
Somebody once told me, for all small business owners out there, that you can't get to second base with one foot still on first. And I always live by that. I just shared that with a friend who's starting her own business. You have to take a leap sometimes to really be successful. So the only thing that's holding you back from greatness is yourself. So take the leap, spend the money if you have to, but just be smart about it and you'll get where you need to go.
Everyone, Rachel Durkin, founder of Paradigm Marketing and Design, brilliant woman. Reach out to her, learn more about her, read about her in the book, download her chapter for free. Rachel, I thank you so much for spending the time with us today. You are an amazing woman, and I am grateful that you're part of my community. So thank you.
You are too. Have a great day. Thank you.